I've talked to you in the past about
One Dark
this.
Window. I have
Yes.
it. I own it. I have not read it yet, though.
Yeah. Okay. So this duology, which is,
What's a duology?
it's two. So trilogy 3, duology 2. You would have gotten there
I have
eventually.
never heard that word in my life. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Good Vibes FC. I'm Sam Lewis. I'm coming to you from the Women's Game World headquarters, back in Vermont, back in my home studio. I'm getting myself all situated here at home.
Are you at all jet lagged?
I'm a little jet lagged. I fell right to sleep last night, and I did wake up like around 5, which honestly isn't that bad.
It's kind of nice when you're going to bed really early and then you wake up, you're like, oh my God, I have the whole day.
Yeah, I like wake up early anyway. Like my normal wake up time is 6, so I
What?
feel like so I do feel like I'll just get right back on track tomorrow.
Oh goodness. Okay, I'm Becky Sauerbrunn coming to you from Portland, Oregon, and I wake
Does
up
not
around
wake up at 6.
8:30 or 9 o'clock. Give me my full 10 hours.
Oh my gosh, 10 hours is like that is such a dream.
Yeah, I'm like hitting a hour and a half nap every day and then probably like 8 or 9 hours of sleep.
You are growing a human.
I am growing a human and my body knows it.
Okay, well, I am not growing a human. I do need 8 hours or else I feel hungover. So I go to bed early, I get up early.
You're swimming too. Do you train your swimming in the morning?
Yeah, I swim. I am. Everybody, listen up. I'm swimming for a swim race. I'm going to Lake Tahoe in July to swim in the Trans Tahoe Relay. I've been getting up and swimming like 3 times a week at the pool, but I do live near the lake. And so I'm going to start. We have plans on Saturday for Pat to kayak next to me while I swim in the open water.
Oh my gosh, is the water cold right now?
Yeah. But the water at Lake Tahoe is going to be cold and I can't wear a wetsuit at the race.
Like you're not allowed to.
Not in our division, no.
Oh, interesting. What's your division?
I don't really know. I think the open division, it's 3 men and 3 women.
That's it?
My team, it's a relay race. So my team
Oh,
has 3 guys and 3 girls. And we
okay.
will take turns relaying across Lake Tahoe. And in our division, you can't wear a wetsuit.
Okay,
Because I think there's a for fun division, but we're not in that one. We're in the
we
we're
are
not
here
doing
to
this for
win.
fun. We're doing this as our entire life's purpose.
I thought you meant there were only 6 people competing at
Oh my
all.
God. Can you imagine if
Yeah,
I
I
was
was like,
in an
"Oh."
elite swim race with only 6 other folks?
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, Good Vibes FC, that's this podcast, is presented by our good friends over at Olipop. You can use code TWG20 for 20% off at drinkolipop.com. Today on the podcast, besides chatting about sleeping and swimming, we're chatting U.S. Women's National Team camp and how the U-23 team is evolving. Then we're reviewing the weekend in NWSL, plus how much fun was the World Sevens tournament to watch. Finally, we'll hear from a listener, and Becky is going to share a very special good vibe with us. Again, we're so lucky. It might be the return of Becky's books. We'll find out later in the show. But first, Reba, I'm so glad we're back together. We just recorded a live reaction show to the Champions League final. We just did that on Saturday. So I feel like I got an extra special in between our normal podcast schedule catch up with you. How are you doing since then?
I'm good. I feel like we have been recording a lot together.
I know.
Lynn
Poor
must be so
Lynn.
jealous.
Well, I think what happened was, Reba,
She's not.
because I was in London and I was 5 more hours ahead of where I usually was. Lynn, it just didn't work with Lynn's schedule a couple of times. And so Becky came up big with the flexibility for me.
Always available. That's one of the benefits of retirement.
Well, I love that. I love that we've been spending so much time together. And anybody who did not listen to our live reaction show on the Women's Game YouTube channel on Saturday after the Champions League final, I really recommend it. It was a great way to break down the game. Obviously, so exciting for Arsenal. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later in the show. Becky, is anything going on with you since the last time we spoke?
I went to a lovely neighborhood barbecue yesterday.
Oh my
And
God.
I feel like when you're done playing, you don't have that structured time where you're guaranteed social time with your friends and teammates. And since retirement, it's kind of daunting. Like, how do you make friends again? And so it was really great getting to spend time with some of my neighbors and just kind of grow that community.
Making friends, I do really like it. Something, I don't know if I've talked about this on the show before. My brain just went a million different directions, but this is the path I'm going to go down. Something I really like about making friends as an adult is like when they don't know old versions of you, you get to just be as you are now, and that's how they come to think of you. So it's like if I'm meeting somebody for the first time, they have no idea who I am. I get to just say whatever I want because they're not like coming into it with like pre-associations or like a preconception of me that maybe they know from high school or maybe they know from college or maybe they know about soccer. And I like love the freedom of that.
I loved that going into college for sure.
Oh.
Because I went
What about now?
now a little bit too. I feel like in the neighborhood, I am known as the soccer person, so people
Oh
kinda
yeah.
know I'm a soccer person, but getting to then be like, "No, I'm also more than just a soccer person. I still really love soccer and do basically everything around
Yeah.
soccer, but, I can't talk about other things." So that was really nice.
That is really nice. I think like something I love about Vermont is that like people aren't necessarily as obsessed with sports. There is certainly are sports fans here, especially women sports fans, which I love so much. I love talking to people. But like a few of the friends that I've made are kind of like, "Oh, what was soccer like?" And I'm like, "I love you. I literally
Yeah.
you are my favorite person to be around because we can talk about anything." Like and there's just no I don't know. There's like no pressure. I really, really like that. But this is not the time to talk about anything. This is the time to talk about soccer, Becky. So let's talk about the U.S. Women's National Team camp that's starting this week. I know we already quickly went over the roster in last week's episode, but I have still been really thinking about this call up for Lo Labonta. She is going to be the oldest player in camp. And if she plays in either game against China on Saturday or Jamaica on Tuesday, she could become the oldest player to ever debut for the U.S. Women's National Team. Becky, 1 week after, we found out this news, we've had some time to digest the roster and see the kind of complementary U23 roster. What are you making of Lowe's inclusion in camp now, and what do you think it's saying about Emma Hayes' midfield in 2027?
I am just so thrilled for Lo, and I've told you I played with her for a bunch of seasons, and she just has this energy and swag that she brings to the
Yeah,
environment,
she does.
both on and off the field. You would know too, you played with her in Kansas City, and she's a savvy player. And I think she really knows how to set up the players around her to succeed. And so she adds that veteran leadership and experience to the midfield and just some personality. And I have never seen Lowe intimidated ever. And she will not be pushed around. And in a way, I feel like her and Trinity Rodman's energy can be quite similar. And we know from past experiences when Trinity came back into the fold against Brazil a couple of friendlies ago, how much Emma appreciated
Yeah.
having Trinity back in the fold and back in the environment because of that energy and individuality.
I actually love that. I think we're going to talk about this idea a little bit more when we talk about World Sevens later in the podcast, but it's this like fun and like confidence. And I think you're spot on to say that Lowe and Trinity bring that. And to have a player coming in who's never been called in with the national team, but you kind of know she's going to bring a little something. She's going to, be talkative at practice. If she plays in one of these games, she's going to bring her personality. If she scores a goal, she's going to celebrate the goal. I think it's like this entertainment factor that is like so valuable and makes it so fun to watch. And then I think to like go along with that, Lo is like really charismatic to be around and she's going to be welcoming players into camp as if she's been there for years. And I think it's something that is going to be really fun and exciting to see going into this upcoming camp. I also saw this really interesting quote just in this past week that Emma said she, quote, agonized over whether or not to include Lowe as an alternate during last summer's Olympics. And so I looked back. Obviously, the players who went as alternates as these midfield positions were Hal Hirschfeld and Croy Bethune, two young and inexperienced players that the staff thought at the time would maybe have more of an impact on the World Cup in 2027. So they chose those players to bring. Hal and Croy, of course, were, great selections. This team won the Olympics, both of them. Croy was involved and actually played in the games. But I found Emma mentioning this to be so interesting. I'm kind of like, why did Emma mention this now? And I do just want to add that, like, a lot of rosters I've been on, especially in the national team at world tournaments, they've benefited from having experienced players on the roster. So when I think about Lowe coming into camp now, and Could she potentially be part of 2027? I think that like having an experienced player on a roster like that is really valuable.
I think that is so fascinating about Lowe potentially being an alternate for 2024. I had no idea. And like speaking of like lack of national team experience, I think one of the most difficult things about the women's national team is just getting your foot in the door. And who's to say if Lowe had been called in 2 years ago that she wouldn't be a mainstay on this roster. So I'm glad her play is being appreciated and rewarded. I'm happy her age didn't automatically
Mhm.
disqualify her from a call up. And I agree, Sam. I think you do need veteran leadership on these rosters, especially during difficult
Yeah.
times. And so I think it's really beneficial to have people around who can help navigate the group through those times.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm glad we got to like deep dive a little bit more about this situation for Lowe because I feel like last week we like just saw the roster and we were like, quick, we have to like include, the reading of this roster and the big news in this show. But now that I've sat back and thought about it more, I'm glad we got to like dissect it a little bit. I feel like Carrie Abello, her call in, this is her first call in too, but it's been kind of overshadowed by this news about Lowe just because Lowe is like such a veteran of this league. But I do want to take a minute to talk about Carrie Abella, who totally deserves this call up. Carrie got drafted to the NWSL to Orlando in 2021 out of Penn State. She's been with Orlando her whole professional career, and she does have some youth national team experience, but this is going to be her first time ever with the senior team. She's 25 years old. And Becky, Carrie Abello is versatile, but is playing outside back for Orlando. What do you think she does so effectively for Orlando that you think could translate to the national team?
I think she's a versatile player. So
Yeah.
she's played along the back line. She's played an attacker. So she's got experience on both sides of the ball. She knows the angles of what her center back needs. She knows how an attacker wants to be played in. I think she's benefited from having some really great coaches in her career at Penn State with Erica Dombach, who I to this day will say is one of the best coaches I've ever worked with, and also now Seb Hines at Orlando. So I think she knows how to fit in well within a team structure, and then I also think she has the technical tools to play within that structure. And she's playing predominantly on that left side. I think Emma Hayes has made a real point of finding depth in that particular position. And she's also like super durable. I think she played in every single one of the Pride's matches last year.
I think that's right. And I now that you're mentioning it, I think that she's also going to have this kind of added benefit of having her Orlando Pride teammate Emily Sams on that back line with her, hopefully kind of showing her the ropes and maybe like pulling her aside after practice. And I think one of the things that's so valuable about having a club teammate in the national team environment is they can kind of like sanity check you and be like, I know we do it like this at club, but like this is what Emma prefers here, or this is how what you should expect from your midfield here in this environment. So I think that relationship of having a club teammate in camp with you can be really, really valuable. So I'm excited for Carrie. I don't know her personally, but I wonder if she'll get minutes.
And also, Sam, with having a club teammate in camp, it's the off field stuff too that can be so
Yeah.
beneficial because there are so many things that you do in that senior environment with like pre-morning screenings and like when can you go to
Oh
lunch? Is
my
it
God.
a range? Is
Yeah.
it a dedicated time? And so there's all these little things that if you've been in the environment and you know the cadence, you can kind of carve out time for yourself and like if you need it. So to have someone there to kind of explain the ropes to you can also be super beneficial.
That is such a good point, Becky. Like, oh my gosh. I'm thinking back on like, my most recent times with the national team where it just felt like the whole day was scheduled out. But you do have these little things you have to learn. Like you mentioned the pre-morning screenings, which is like in my time, it was an app on your phone that you had to like fill out these questions about how your body was feeling, how your mind was feeling. Rank your hamstring soreness on a scale of red to green and having a club teammate in there to be like, you have to do this by this time. Are you having issues with the schedule? Are you having issues with getting treatment? Like to just kind of talk through and sanity check you off the field too. I think that's such a good point, Reba. Um, I've also been like really fascinated. We're talking about some of these like newer call ups. Obviously, both Lowe and Kerry are, aged out of the U23 program, but we just got this roster drop kind of like next to the full team roster. The U23s are going to go and play two matches in Germany. Those games are on May 30th and June 2nd. And the U23 roster, like normally, Becky, I feel like we wouldn't talk about it on this podcast. I feel like we would talk about the full national team, the NWSL, like the highest level. We don't talk that much about the youth teams, but this roster feels really stacked. It feels like a lot of the players on it are players that we're already talking about regularly. And I think I want to preface the whole thing by saying, like, the U23 program historically has been this kind of weird in between time. And for years, like, even I assume when both of us had some time with the 23s, it felt like this holding ground for players who might never make the full team. They were good and they belonged in a program, but some of us never really took that next step. Um, and so I do want to take some time on this show today to talk about it because of some of these players, Jaden Shaw, Corbin Albert, Mia Fishel. A lot of NWSL players are going into this camp. The roster includes two NWSL goalkeepers and Angelina Anderson, who plays for Angel City. She was called into the full team last camp, and Jordan Silkowitz, who plays for Bay. And Becky, this goalkeeper spot remains like one of the most interesting conversation topics. It was left open by a listener, and it might not be like grabbed up yet by any of these players in the full team roster or the 23 roster, but this list of players who could claim it is like really long.
Yeah. And I'd have to imagine the national staff is thinking it's better for these goalkeepers to get minutes in quality games against Germany and Germany than potentially sitting the bench with the senior team here domestically and having maybe a few training sessions. So the more this U23 program gets structured out with staffing, with scheduling, when I played with the 23s, we maybe had 2, 3 training sessions a year, maybe a tournament if you were lucky. So I feel like the more it's staffed and scheduled out, the more beneficial it'll be for the players hoping to make the jump to the senior team, but then also for the senior team having these players getting acquainted with tactics and systems that the senior national team employs. And so I think one of the goals for really buffing up the U side and investing so much money into it is that so these players do get introduced to these systems as early as possible.
Totally agree. I think that like the focus that's going into this U23 program, hopefully, and like this camp is like kind of starting to signal that there is a focus going into it, is going to make the pool even deeper and make these players more ready and even like in better form for when it is time to get pulled into the full team camp. I see it as like Mia Fishel is such a good example. She's a full national team player who's coming back from a long injury, and this U23 opportunity is like so well suited for her. Um, I want to stay with this U23 roster. I want to talk about the defenders really quick. The roster of defenders include Jordan Bug and Emily Mason, who play for Seattle, Lauren Flynn, who plays for Utah, Lily Reel, a name we talk about almost every week, who plays for Gotham, Kennedy Wesley on San Diego, and then Evelyn Shores, who is still in college at UNC. She's the only college player on this roster. Becky, when I was with the 23s, it was almost all college players. What do you think it says that now almost all of these U23 players are playing in professional environments?
Yeah, I mean, when I think back when I played with for the U23s, and the first time I think I was brought with the 23s, or maybe the second time, I had already made my debut with the senior team, and Pian Sudaga brought me in and was just saying, "You're not quite ready for the senior full team." So this was between leagues, and so many of the players were playing professionally internationally. Like I remember Krieger, Ali Krieger, I was playing with, and she was in Germany. She's probably like it was rare to have an international professional player on the 23s. And most of them, like you said, were all scouted from the college game. So it doesn't surprise me that the majority of these players are now playing professionally. I think they're playing with and against some of the best players in the world almost on a daily basis. And so it's really a testament to the growth of the league that there are now these protections and resources available that younger players feel more comfortable declaring earlier.
Yeah, for sure. I mentioned Lily Reel's name in that list of defenders. I can imagine that Lily Reel, especially as you mentioned, like we're really finding depth for these outside back positions. Lily Reel has been having a really great season for Gotham, and I think what I want to talk about is like the benefit of going with the 23s first. We've touched on it a little bit. Maybe like not being thrown into an environment that you're not ready for, but why I'm imagining if it were me, some of these players might be like, dang, I really wanted to get called in with the full team, especially some of these players that we already know have lots of reps with the full team. Why would a player like Lily Reel be actually better suited to play with the 23s right now?
I think one of the biggest jumps from the pro game to the international game is that ability to perform consistently, like at your best when it's in the most difficult and challenging environments. And Sam, we were talking about how you felt ill throughout the entire 2019 World Cup, and yet you still found a way to dominate that midfield and play super well. So I think it can be really beneficial to gain the experience of how to do that during these youth programs, the U-23 games that these players are going to be playing, youth World Cups. I mean, I remember playing in 2004 at an under 19 tournament in Thailand and just thinking like, this is the biggest thing that I've ever played in. And I was just sick to my stomach. I almost made myself sick before the tournament started because you just don't know what to expect until you are actually in that kind of environment. And to this day, thinking back on that U19 tournament, how beneficial it was going into my first 2011 World Cup and just kind of knowing the structure of the tournament, knowing what it could feel like and like working through and processing those emotions, so beneficial.
I completely agree. And to your point, like the U17 and U20 World Cups that I played in my youth career are really why I was able to like get through the 2019 World Cup feeling ill the whole time because I had gone through those reps before. And like the way the tournament is structured with the travel and like being in a hotel and being in this locker room and moving locker rooms, like I even remember like feeling even down to like the signage, the FIFA signage of the tournament. I was like, "Oh yeah, I've like seen this before. I like kind of know what to expect."
Mhm.
And so I think that the youth team reps are really just like more tools in your toolkit to like make you better prepared for the full team. Um I think you even mentioned like one time you were with the 23s and you had already made your senior team debut. And I had a similar situation. And I remember feeling like a little bit unprepared for the full team. Like, well, I like maybe could be here, but I'm going to be the worst one for a while. And then going back down with the 23s actually was like a breath of, oh, I am good. Like I might not be like quite ready to like be a standout player for the full team, but like I can be a standout player here in this environment. And it's almost that breath of like confidence. And it's like when you're in an appropriate environment that you can excel in versus like being kind of thrown to the wolves a little bit early where you like can't quite excel yet.
Yeah. I agree that at the time it could feel really difficult. Like I know I had a real sense of fear that I was never going to get a chance again with the senior team. And luckily, there's the NWSL and so many other leagues around the world where you get to showcase your growth and potential. And I mean, it took me over 2 years to get a call back with the senior team after being put back down with the 23s. And I was luckily playing in the WPS at the time. And when I got that chance, Sammy, because I got a chance to kind of thrive in that 23 group, I was so much better prepared for the opportunity when I got that second chance.
For sure, Becky. Okay, I want to move into the midfield, and I this is an area where Emma Hayes is kind of bringing some like real weight and importance back to the 23s. A quote Emma had said this week was, "quote This is what I felt has been really missing for a lot of our players." So, Corbin Albert, who was solid at the Olympics last year, she even scored a goal. She is going in with the 23s, despite her already having a bunch of full team experience, even tournament experience. She's joined in the midfield by Abby Brighton, who plays for Juventus. Riley Jackson and Jaden Shaw from the Courage, Sam Meza from Seattle Reign, Sarah Skupansky, who plays for Gotham. And then the forwards for the 23s are Maddie Darlene, who I've been raving about all season for Seattle, plus Kaya Hanks from the Thorns, Jamise Joseph from Chicago, McKenna Morris from the Spirit, and Riley Tiernan, the rookie with 6 goals so far this NWSL season for Angel City. Plus, of course, there's Mia Fishel, who we've already mentioned, the Chelsea striker, who also has lots of U.S. women's national team experience, but is returning from an ACL injury. And I think that maybe just being in a place where gaining confidence, having success, getting these reps is a better option for her than the full team camp. But Becky, I'm curious of all of these familiar names of midfielders and forwards, some of whom have tons of full team experience already, what really stands out to you about this roster?
I'm thinking about the players that do have that senior national team experience and now are going to be with the 23s. And I think it's gonna be tough, of course, to feel like you've been in that senior environment and now you're with the 23s. But I think it's a real opportunity for the players and for the senior team staff to see how these players conduct themselves in this new environment, how they potentially step into leadership roles, and of course, how they perform on the field. And so it is going to be tough, but I really think it's a good test for these players to work through that, to navigate through that. and to show what makes them worthy of being back up with the senior team. And when I look at that forward group, I am so impressed. That is a stacked group. I almost feel bad for the German defenders who are going to have to go against them, almost. But
Almost.
that group, those players are playing so well, so dynamic. That is going to be such a handful.
I know. The German defenders, yes, but I'm even like it's for the forwards going in with the full team. It's like such motivation to perform because
Mhm.
you know that these players kind of on this team right behind you are in the pool. Emma is watching them and they're like performing really well right now. So it's really great motivation, I think, even between the two rosters. A couple of other things we just wanted to note. 5 of these players on the U23 roster are allowed to be over age 23 for these games against Germany. Those players are Angelina Anderson, Mia Fischel, Sam Meza, Kennedy Wesley, and Jordan Silkowitz. As we think about this FIFA window in general, with all of these players leaving their clubs, going into camp, it's coming at an interesting time where many of the US based players, as usual, are coming into camp from their busy NWSL schedules. But some players in both rosters, including Naomi Girma, Crystal Dunn, and Champions League winner Emily Fox, are coming in at the very end of their European seasons. And I'm curious, Becky, if you think this is one of those camps where like the timing and where some of these players are at individually will factor into what we can expect to see for playing time and lineups.
If I were Foxy, I might still be inebriated, so maybe there's some consideration for her in the lineup. Sam, we all know after your 2019 exploits that you
I wasn't ready
also
for a couple weeks.
So, I actually think if it were gonna be a FIFA window where they're making these kind of considerations, it's gonna be the next one when some of these European players haven't
Mm,
trained or played in games for a month. But I think the same considerations that are always in place will be here for this
yeah.
one. I don't think you're going to see 2 90-minute performances from anyone. I think players will be monitored based on how they're feeling, if they're coming into camp completely healthy or if they picked up knocks or anything like that from this past weekend. So I think it's more that next FIFA window.
That makes sense. I wanna stay with Emily Fox and the fact that she's just coming off winning Champions League with Arsenal right now. Obviously coming into this camp, I would expect her to be a little bit tired, but also kind of like flying.
Yeah.
She's coming off an unbelievable campaign with Arsenal. She played in like 35 games. Just this past weekend, they won Champions League. They beat Barcelona 1-0. It was like such a historic run. And there were so many stories to tell about this Arsenal team. Like, obviously, Becky, we went live right after the game. We were kind of trying to figure out which stories we wanted to tell. The women's game was trying to hit all these stories on social media. There was just so many amazing things happening coming out of this Arsenal win. Becky, what has been your biggest takeaway in the aftermath? Like, what impressed you the most about Arsenal's year and their victory?
I think if I'm speaking specifically about the victory, it's that defense wins championships, and I know that gets just thrown around sometimes, but it Arsenal just encapsulated that phrase perfectly. They were so good on the day, and we know how good Barcelona is. I mean, we raved about them. Sam, you were convinced that they were gonna win because how could anyone stop all those amazing players? And Arsenal found a way, and they did it for 90 plus minutes in the heat of Lisbon, and it was just so impressive.
It was so impressive, and I love that the defense is getting a lot of credit here because, as I said on our live reaction show, still available on our YouTube channel, Arsenal just weathered the storm. And huge shout out to Emily Fox, who had such an incredible influence on Arsenal, especially on their defense this year. A huge congratulations to her and to Jenna Neiswanger, our 2 Americans who are now Champions League champions. I can't wait to see Foxy in camp this week. She's generally just having such a great couple of years, I think has really cemented herself as such a stalwart of this US women's national team back line. So I'm looking forward to seeing her in camp. We do need to take a quick break after that really in-depth U23 US women's national team breakdown. But when we come back, we're talking NWSL and World Sevens. So don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everybody. Okay, Becky, let's get into a couple of the most exciting storylines from the NWSL this past weekend before we dive into the World Sevens tournament, which I am also so excited to talk about. First up, we have to mention Barbara Banda. Orlando beat Utah, and Barbara Banda scored the club's first ever hat trick. Not only that, she scored all 3 of those goals in the first half, making it the fastest ever hat trick in the NWSL.
We were talking about Barbara Banda on last week's Good Vibes and how Orlando seemed to be like playing with her positioning. Was she central? Was she more wide? How could she get better service? And I guess I figured it out. She was dangerous from literally every position on the field.
I know. We are like living in such a blessed time for like watching goal scorers in the NWSL. I know we were just raving about Arsenal's defense, but like Barbara Banda,
Thing of beauty.
just an absolute thing of beauty. Another huge storyline continues to be San Diego. You heard me, everybody. San Diego are in second place and they beat North Carolina 5-2 at home this past weekend. This team is on such a ride. They couldn't stop scoring this game. And it could have been that Wave investor Alex Morgan, notorious goal scorer, was in the house and just brought that goal scoring energy to the stadium for San Diego.
Sam, I had to nerd out on the XG a little bit, expected goals, as I usually do. So I'm
Classic.
watching the game, and the commentators were mentioning that San Diego's XG for this game was only 1.82. So they were only expected, based on their chances, to score 2 goals in that game, and they scored 5.
5?
5. So whatever magic Alex Morgan is bringing, make her go to all the games.
Yeah.
She's now going everywhere.
Yeah, make sure her season ticket is updated and you got to get her rides back and forth, etc. I will say that one Adriana Leone goal that like she was charging, the goalkeeper came out and she just like that did seem like a low expected goal, but it was such an incredible finish from like such a difficult situation with, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and knowing you're about to just get body slammed by
Yeah.
Casey Murphy, I mean, it's
Yeah.
very brave.
Yeah, and it went in and that's one of those maybe XG defying goals.
Apparently.
All right. Well, props to San Diego. I'm like loving watching them. And then also got to mention Riley Tiernan continues to be on an absolute tear for Angel City, despite Angel City did lose to Louisville 3-2. Riley Tiernan scored her 6th goal as a rookie. She immediately celebrated, which I would love to see. She showed her wristband with a 3 on it for her teammate, Savvy King. And another really heartwarming thing to see out of this match was Savannah DeMello scoring a great goal after a story came out earlier this week that Savannah DeMello was diagnosed with Graves' disease and hyperthyroidism. You could tell that this road win meant a lot to Louisville, who now sit in a playoff position. And I'm always cheering for Savannah DeMello. I think that she's like such a great player. And to kind of hear more about this story and her health, and then to see her score such a great goal and, just be a part of this Louisville team, I think is like really inspiring. And I find myself always cheering for her.
Yeah, it was a huge win for Louisville. I thought they played very well against an Angel City team that's like, had been finding their stride. And Sav's goal was an amazing first time shot after a really amazing run from Fisher. It was like Louisville just like couldn't put a foot wrong there for like 20 minutes. And the way that the team celebrated with her, with Sav, you could just like tell how pumped they were for her and how much that goal meant to Louisville, to Sav, to the group.
I know, it was really sweet. This game was like it definitely had some like drama, especially in like the refereeing department and like the fouls department. But that was a really heartwarming moment, so I was happy for them about that. Just a couple more quick ones. The Spirit won against Seattle and welcomed Croy Bethune's first goal back from injury. Kansas City beat Chicago 3-1. And then Bay and Houston tied 2-2. Avery Patterson did score a banger for Houston, which has got to feel good as she is heading back into U.S. Women's National Team camp this week.
Always a good feeling heading into women's national team camp on a high. And she's been I feel like I know her so well now after the elevator, but that's a side point. She's been like such a
Forgot about that.
we're best friends now. She's been such a real attacking presence for Houston. And I feel like if she can carry that form to the national team, like it's only going to benefit her and the group.
Wait, do you have her phone number?
No, I don't have her
Oh
phone
my
number.
God.
We're not like that.
Okay, I want you to get her phone number and like text her and say good luck. I just think that would be so cute. Okay, good luck to Avery Patterson. All right, that was a very quick recap of NWSL. I know a lot of other stuff happened, but I need to talk about World Sevens. Like, I am not involved with World Sevens. I am not getting paid. But I loved watching it, Becky. Like, obviously, I'm not comparing watching the NWSL to watching a 7v7 tournament. I know that they're like totally different things. So anything that we're about to say is not that we expect the NWSL to change the rules of the game. But I just feel like events like this are like bringing more attention and energy to our sport. For people who don't know, the World Sevens tournament happened last week over 3 days in Portugal. Teams like Ajax, Man United, and Bayern Munich competed. Bayern took home the $2.5 million prize, which like is up to the club how it gets distributed, but like a certain amount of it needs to be distributed to the staff and players who were at the tournament. So like I was kind of hoping that like every player got like a pretty solid chunk of money. I don't know how much it was, but like maybe we can do some sleuthing and find out. Becky, what we can talk about is like what we think this experience would have been like for the players. Would you have thought about playing in a 7v7 tournament at the end of your season to possibly make a chunk of change? Like, do you think this sounds fun?
I think it sounds really fun, and I feel like at the end of a season, you never know if that team is gonna be the same, and everyone kind of just, like, goes off to their own hometowns, and it just can be, like, kinda sad, so it seems like an awesome way to have the party get to continue a little bit longer, to play a different style of
Yeah.
soccer, to potentially make some good money, like, yeah, it sounds awesome.
I literally think it sounds so fun, and it looked like the players were literally having the time of their lives. I do have to say, when I first heard about the tournament, and then I heard the clubs that were going, I was like, "Oh my god, these are, like, legitimately the best clubs going," and that, like, kind of surprised me because I think like, the level of club that participated, like, really legitimized the tournament. We have a similar small-sided tournament here in the US called TST. It's actually coming up, and it's, like, it's, like, groups of players. It's not like clubs do have teams. Like, I know the Courage has a team, but then there's the USA Women, and it's, like, they're, like, retired players. Like, it's not the actual players from the club teams that are, like, competing in the tournament because it's, like, kind of going on during the season. So I think that, like, the legitimacy of the clubs, the level of the players there, like Jess Park and Caroline played for Man City, Lily Johannes played for Ajax, Celine Bizet and Ella Toon, Fallon Tellis Joyce played for Man United, Pernille Harder was there for Bayern Munich, like playing, scoring goals, doing the conga line after the games, like doing these crazy wild celebrations. It was so fun and so legitimate and so high level that like I was just kind of blown away with the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, you're continuing the party, you're playing with teammates, you're playing against amazing players like all the ones that you just listed, and the prize money is probably no deterrent either. You have the potential to earn your club and its players, like, some real money, and so it seems like a real win-win.
I totally agree. I think it seems like such a win-win. I like literally want to play in it so bad, and I'm like, can I make a return to just play in small-sided games? But we'll talk about that another time. I do think it kind of reminded me to basketball's Unrivaled League, which happened earlier this year during the WNBA offseason. Unrivaled was like a huge success. It brought in like more eyeballs. There was like an increased energy to basketball to the players who participated in it. It was like an opportunity for players to grow their brand, to break through like a kind of a saturated market. And I think like a lot of eyeballs were on it, like new eyeballs. It had like a cool vibe. Like you would talk about it at work around the water cooler. Like people were just talking about it. And I think that World Sevens had kind of a similar thing. Like you got to see the personalities of the players. You got to see them in a totally different and I don't want to say less professional, but like less rigid environment. Um, Obviously, I think that I mentioned that like the level of club being involved legitimized the tournament, but so did the players who were talking about it. Kelly O'Hara and Tobin Heath were so involved with bringing it to life. They were, part of making the tournament come together. They were part of like letting fans know it was going on. And that really legitimized it for me as well. And something that Tobin said that really stood out to me was she said, for me, a 90-minute football game nowadays is not speaking to the next generation. This format really speaks to the next generation. It's football fun again. Football has become so professionalized, so prescribed. We're missing the fun, the feel of what football is, what I fell in love with. Speaking to the players here, it's been fantastic. They just say this is so fun. Coming from Tobin, who I also see as like a purist, Becky, this like surprised me in a way, but also didn't surprise me in a way because I see what she means about like a 90-minute game becoming very prescribed and professional. And like when we are trying to reach a new audience, is a way of hooking people in through a shorter, faster game with more goals with funny celebrations. I don't know, maybe.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I am not surprised that that quote came from Tobin at all. And I think it just goes to show that soccer can be appreciated in so many different forms, like
Yeah.
from random pickup at a local park to like the indoor leagues where you play at 10 o'clock at night. You've got TST, you've got the World Sevens, and then you have professional teams. And so I think it's awesome that the beautiful game can be played in so many different ways and be appreciated in all those forms.
That was like literally, I thought you were going to be like a purist about it and be like, you know what? Like, yeah, this is fun, but like it's not. But that actually was a purist answer because you just love the game so much that all of its forms are like legitimate.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, can soccer, when you play at the highest level, be very prescribed and professionalized, like Tobin said? Sure. And can that take some of the freedom out of the game? Yeah, it can. And that's why you have to find it within yourselves to find that fun and like what brought you to the game and keep that within your heart throughout all these levels. But like, yeah, sometimes it's awesome to go from, okay, I just played a 90-minute game at Providence Park, but I'm gonna go kick the ball around with Zola at the local park and just like do two-touch juggling, and my heart's gonna be just as full.
I really love that a lot. I'm like kind of speechless. I think it's just something I never thought about as a player because I didn't think I had like an option to. And I'm not saying I didn't like love the game, but I it's really speaking to me now. I think that the highest level of the game is this one thing. It's this 90-minute game that like is really meaningful and it's worth 3 points in the league. And I can imagine that the thing you fell in love with, which for me was like being out on the grass with my friends, starts to like take second, like the back seat to how important it all is. And so I just like am obsessed with this idea of like finding the joy, finding the time to like celebrate and like do a Maradona, try and do a rainbow because like kind of who cares? Like we're
Yep,
here for fun. Um
exactly.
so I like literally loved it. I loved World Sevens. I'm a huge fan. And I wanted to make World Sevens our Olipop gut check of the week, Becky. So here we are. Olipop gut check of the week. Becky, who would you pick for your World Sevens team?
That is the most terrible question. I hate questions like this. I will always avoid answering it. I have a story about when I was playing in the WPS, I was like a last second addition to this all-star game that they had. And Abby Wambach and Marta, they were the two captains. And so they drafted their own teams. And Abby went all current national team, US national team players. And then Marta went with everyone else. So I was with Marta on Marta's team. And needless to say, Marta's team won. And so I just remember how uncomfortable Abby was having to choose her team. And so, no, Sam, I'm not participating in this gut check. So I am pleading the fifth.
Oh my
What do you
gosh. I
have?
almost forgot to open my Olipop, by the way.
What do you got?
I have Dr. Goodwin. I will admit, Dr. Goodwin was the last one that I had in my fridge because it wasn't the first flavor that I would have opted for, but I'm gonna try it and I am gonna be open-minded because I love Olipop.
I've got classic root beer.
Yum.
All right, stop avoiding it, Sammy.
I have a story about this, and this is who I would pick for my World Sevens team. I was watching World Sevens with Christy and Sam in London, and Christy said to me, "Who would you guys want on your team?" And I said Sonnet. And then Christy was like, "Okay, who else?" And she started like naming other suggestions that would also make great teammates. And I just went, "No, no, no. I just want Sonnet. All I want is Sonnet on my World Sevens team. It can be me, Christy, and Sonnet, and I'm fine with that. But like that's what I need. I just need Emily Sonnet. I think that when I think of like a small-sided hero, it is Emily Sonnet, and like that's it. Whoever else is on our team is none of my business. It's Sonnet or die.
That is fair. I mean, having played with and against Sonnet in many a small-sided game over the years. Yeah, she's something special and small-sided.
I know. Well, that was our Lollipop Gut Check of the week. Neither of us fully answered the question, but you know what? We make the rules, so it's totally fine with me. Let us know in the comments who would be on your World Sevens team, and if it's not Sonnet, I'm gonna delete the comment. Okay, everybody, we need to take one more quick break, and then we'll be back. Welcome back to Good Vibes FC, everybody. It's time for all the quick hits of news from around the women's soccer world. This past Saturday, New York, New Jersey's Gotham FC became the very first winners of the Women's CONCACAF Champions Cup. They beat out Liga MX's team Tigres thanks to a big 82nd minute goal from Esther Gonzalez. Not only does Gotham walk away the champions, they have also now qualified for the 2026 FIFA Women's Champions Cup and the 2028, that seems like ages away,
So far away.
FIFA Women's Club World Cup. So the future for Gotham is bright even beyond the NWSL.
Speaking of the future of the NWSL, the Boston Legacy and their fans had something to celebrate this weekend as well. The team is reportedly about to hire the Portuguese soccer coach, Filipa Patau. At just 36, she has already guided her previous club, Benfica, to 5 consecutive league titles and made history in 2023 when she led the club to the Champions League semifinals, a first for a Portuguese women's team. She was also one of the finalists for the prestigious Ballon d'Or for women's head coach in 2024.
It was also announced that the future NWSL team, Boston Legacy, will play their inaugural season at Gillette Stadium, which is also home to the New England Patriots and the New England Revolution. There has been some predictable delays in the construction on White Stadium, which the team is working on with the city of Boston. And as somebody who knows the area really well, I don't think Gillette is ideal for soccer, but I do think that it's the best option. And Boston is up against a lot. You know, they're an expansion team. They're coming in. Boston has a lot of red tape. Boston is like a really well-established city. But I think that this, decision to move to Gillette when they have to move somewhere is an example of making the best decision that's available.
Have we ever played at Gillette?
The national team played at Gillette in 2013. I know that because Christy scored a goal and my whole family was there to watch her.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was so cool.
Oh, very cool. Okay, so lots of changes in the air. Angel City FC is about to welcome their new head coach, Alexander Strauss, who officially takes over the position on June 1st. Strauss comes to the NWSL from the Frauen Bundesliga in Germany, where he just led Bayern Munich to their 3rd league title in a row.
Strauss could be far from the last international talent we see coming to the NWSL, as leagues like the WSL, Liga F, Liga MX, and Bundesliga all are coming to an end. Players could be making the move to come and play here in America, like Icelandic forward Svendis Johnstarter, who will be joining Angel City from Wolfsburg in Germany.
But we are also seeing European players move to teams elsewhere in Europe, like Jill Roord, the Dutch midfielder who announced this week she would be leaving Manchester City in the WSL to play for the Netherlands-based club FC Twente.
Meanwhile, German star Jule Brand made headlines last week when she announced she'd be leaving Wolfsburg to play for Lyon, one of the first high-profile signings the team has made amidst their off-season restructuring, which has involved releasing many of their players, such as Vanessa Gilles. She had been on loan to Lyon from Angel City since 2022, but this past week she announced that she's making a permanent move to German champions Bayern Munich. A lot of moving pieces here, Reeves.
A lot of moving pieces. And in just one last piece of soccer news, it was just announced that Chelsea captain and Lioness Millie Bright will be taking a break from playing after finishing a very long season with Chelsea. She will not participate in England's upcoming Nations League matches with the goal of resting up for this summer's Euros. Arsenal's Lada Wubben-Moy will take her place on the roster as the team hopes to defeat Spain and Portugal to earn a spot in the Nations League knockout stage.
Tons of news, all very exciting. Let's go over to the inbox, Becky. We got an email from Sarah that asks, "Hi, Sam, Becky, and Lynn. My name is Sarah, and I live in San Diego. I'm originally from Rhode Island, though, not too far from Hanson." Very true. I've always been so curious about what it's like in the locker room after a loss or on the field after a big mistake. When do players apologize for mistakes on the field? Own goals, missed goal-scoring opportunities, major cards, etc. Is it common for players to apologize, or is it more so accepted that these things are all a part of the game? I imagine it's also dependent on the player and their personality. Been curious about this for years. Thanks for your time, and go Wave, Sarah. Sarah, what a great question. I saw Becky nodding along, so you have her approval. Becky, what do you think? When do players apologize to the team?
I think it depends on the player and the mistake. Like, I think back to one of the biggest mistakes I made on the field, and that was against Spain in a knockout round of the 2019 World Cup. And a ball got picked off that Alyssa played to me, and Spain scored to tie the game back up. And for me, in that moment, it was really important to accept responsibility for the mistake, to let everyone know, like, that was my bad. I am okay. I will play the rest of this game to the best of my ability. I will not let that happen again. I apologize. And I feel like that was important in the moment because it lets everyone else know, like, oh, she's good. She's got it. She knows she's messed up, but that's okay. She looks like she's fine now. So I think there are times when you accept it right in the moment, and then
Mm,
there are times maybe later in the locker room where if it's like weighing heavy on your heart or you feel like maybe people feel a certain way about something that happened that yeah, you just take responsibility and accountability and that goes really far with people when you're willing to put your hand up and say that's on me. That's my bad. And then I think there are times when you know that player is hurting because of the mistake and you know that they know it was them and
mhm.
you just let it be because you could tell that they're already kind of beating themselves up about it. And so I think you need to know each other, you need to know yourself and you need to know what's best for the team and I think you just try your best based off those factors.
Yeah, that was like such a perfect answer. I think it captured pretty much everything. I feel like as somebody who apologizes too much, um, I often apologize for things on the field. And I think what I would tell somebody like myself now is like it's a team sport. Like
Yeah.
if everybody was perfect the whole game, the game like wouldn't be interesting. Like you're on a team, so you are responsible for yourself and other people. Other people are responsible for themselves and for you. And like it's a team effort. Mistakes are going to get made. I usually always tried to apologize to anybody that would listen, even maybe for things that weren't entirely my fault. But I think to your point, Becky, like the willingness to take accountability is really, really important in a team environment because if you're like pointing fingers and unable to see where you contributed to a mistake or like a letdown, I just think that's like really bad for the team. And a sign of good team culture is almost like too many people being willing to raise their hand and go, "Well, I could have done this." Um, one of my favorite things about watching film back in like a film room with the team is when you watch a goal against and multiple people chime in to go, "I should have done this." And then the coach is just sitting there like, "Well,
My job's done.
if you guys knew all this, why didn't you do it?" But like the willingness to like take ownership and take accountability and like it's almost worse for me to think that somebody else would get blamed for something I knew I could have prevented. And so I think that's like always to me a sign of good team culture is when multiple people are willing to take accountability for mistakes. But I love that question, Sarah. Thank you so much for writing in. We love reading questions. We've had such great questions the past couple of weeks, Becky. I've like loved this segment. So if everybody could please keep sending them, you're really keeping this podcast alive. You can email us with questions at womensgamemib@menandblazers.com. I promised Becky's books, but it is time for good vibes, Becky. So, what's your good vibe and can you make it about books?
Ugh, I can make a lot of things about books, and luckily, my good vibe was gonna be about a book anyway, but
Oh my god.
I've talked to you in the past about
One Dark
this.
Window. I have it.
Yes.
I own it. I have not read it yet though.
Yeah, okay, so this duology, which is the Shepherd King, this is the first book, One Dark Window.
What's a
S
duology?
It's 2. So, a trilogy, 3, duology, 2. You would have gotten there
I have
eventually.
never heard I have never heard that word in my life.
Well, you just learned something new from my good vibe. But I loved this duology so much. And the author, Rachel Gillig, just came out with her new book. It's called The Night and the Moth. And I love her writing style. I love that it's like gothic, atmospheric settings. And so this is on that the new book is on my TBD list for will be read soon.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, thank you so much for helping me out and making your good vibe about a book. I'm really excited for you. I have like so many good vibes. I don't even like really know what to share. I want to be part of the book thing. I recently picked back up the fifth book in the fifthology.
I think that's the correct term.
The fifth book, I started reading the Court of Thorns and Roses series like a long time ago, like when everybody else was reading it. But I just got like stuck on the last couple books and I like wasn't reading them. But I've had the fifth book on my phone for like months and months and months. And because I was traveling and I was on the plane, I was reading it on the plane. Um, and that was so fun. Like you know, when you don't read for a while and then you start reading again, you're like, I love reading.
Yes.
I'm in that. So I am really excited about that book. Um, it's a very steamy book, I will admit, but you know what? Everybody's reading it, so it's fine. And my other good vibe that I was going to say is just that I'm back in Vermont and it's so green here. Becky, like it's so green.
How's your garden doing?
It's doing really good. Pat, my other good vibe. Shout out to Pat. Single dog dad for 10 days without me. Held it down. I can't say that the house was spotless when I got home, but it's still here. The garden is doing good. It's so green, and I'm just like really happy to be home. I'm just feeling just great.
And the dog's fine.
He's great.
Were you so excited to see the dog?
So excited.
More so than Pat?
Don't make me
Fifth.
answer that.
Plead
Don't
the
make me
fifth.
answer that in public. Okay, so many good vibes to go around. Becky, thank you so much. That is it, sadly, for this week's episode of Good Vibes FC. If you could please take a moment, make sure that you're subscribed to this podcast. What's it called? Podcast feed? Can't believe I forgot that. It's been about 18 months of doing this and I forgot what it was called. And make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, please. We have a really great interview coming out with Tara McCown on Thursday, heading into that U.S. Women's National Team camp. And then on Saturday, after the U.S. Women's National Team game against China, we are going live on the Women's Game YouTube channel with Megan Klingenberg. I'm really, really excited about that. You can follow along with us across all social media at Women's Game MIB. And I think that's it, Reba.
I'm Becky Sauerbrunn.
And I'm Sam Ewis. Thank you all so much for being here. Love ya.
Bye.